a woman who retired as one of the most decorated alpine ski racers of all time, Lindsey Vonn, here in studio with us. And Lindsey, thank you so much for joining us here in New York, taking the time. We know that you've been going city to city. You even had time to send me your workout routine that you do in the mornings, and I tried it this morning as well.
Had to go.
Drenched in sweat before 5 a.m., something that I never thought would happen, but
off to a great start.
Made it possible, and I still haven't closed my move ring, so I still have a little work to do, apparently.
Right.
First and foremost, as we really think about your history and this theme of invest, especially as so many athletes have to figure out how to stretch their winnings, stretch their dollars, whether they've got a massive contract from a team or not. When you're a skier, that's a different position that you're put in. How have you kind of engaged that? Because there's no huge contract being, presented or guaranteeing compensation, but you have to kind of be scrappy in certain sense. You're preparing both financially and also to compete.
Yeah, I mean, my dad taught me very young that, if I wanted to be successful as a person, I had to be a lot more than a ski racer. Historically, ski racers don't make any money. We're not like football players or basketball players. We don't get massive multi-million-dollar guaranteed contracts. Most of my money was made off of victory schedules. So when I won, I got paid. If I didn't get paid. And then eventually over time, I was able to, command higher guarantees, but still not in even remotely the same ballpark as most professional athletes. So I really try to develop a brand. What can I offer outside of the slopes? Ski racing is usually only watched once every 4 years, the Winter Olympics. So how can I stretch the time in between? And it took me, my whole career, 20 years, to build, my career up to the point where I am in this position now, where, I have built a solid nest egg, and I've been able to make really good investments, and I have equity in most of the companies that I've had sponsorships by. And again, the relationships that I've had in my ski racing career, like sponsored by Red Bull and Rolex, I've been with them for almost 20 years.
Yeah.
So those are always long-term relationships, and that's how I've been able to sustain, my brand, is by building those really long-term relationships.
I mean, what is the delta, though, for people who don't have a full grasp on it, between a high type of year and a low, and how do you go about that?
Well, I mean, in years where I was injured, I didn't make anything. Some of my contracts were kind enough, like Red Bull, for example, to support me, and sometimes it was half. But if you're not winning, you're not making money. So, again, you have to be really smart with how you manage your money, how you're thinking strategically long term. I've had offers, for a pretty sizable amount of money that it was a company that I wasn't really, that comfortable with, and I always declined because short-term gain is long-term failure. So I always think long-term. Is this company going to hurt my brand? Is it going to help my brand? And is it going to help me make money 20 years from now, or is it only going to be today?
Yeah. In that evaluation in your partnerships, there are a lot of student athletes nowadays that have to think about that same thought process and the same considerations with the rise of NIL deal making. A lot of student athletes perhaps trying to understand how to choose the right partners or sponsors. What should they remember, and something that perhaps you've picked up along the way?
Yeah, I mean, for NIL athletes, it's a really interesting position that they're in because they're still in college, they're still learning, but they're also able to make money, which I think is an amazing opportunity. But I think it's also an opportunity to get distracted. I think being a professional athlete is a challenge in that you want to be the best, and you also want to hopefully have a business and make money. So as an athlete, you're presented with a lot more challenges. So I don't envy them, but I think it's also an opportunity. Having them make money is a lot better than not, and most of those athletes won't go on to be professional. So it's how can you, again, make those relationships that are meaningful, that potentially have a longer runtime than just your college career, because that can transition you into something else much bigger down the road.
I think you mentioned something very key a moment ago in the companies where you identify an opportunity to hold equity as well. And some athletes have been known not to just partner with a company, but partner with a company if they have the opportunity to have equity. Shaq, Papa John's, you've got Steph Curry, Under Armour. How do you prioritize endorsements versus product oversight? You've got a line with Head as well, or even equity ownership.
Well, look, I always weigh the balance of cash and equity. I think in my position, I always have to veer towards some cash, not all equity. I don't have the luxury of having guaranteed multi-million-dollar contracts, so I always have to make sure I'm covering myself first, and then take the calculated risk and how much equity I take with a company. But I do think that is the best long-term strategy if you really believe in the company. And again, I don't get involved with companies that I don't truly believe in and that I believe I can grow with. So if that's my mindset, then equity is a smart play. I've been with Under Armour for 20 years, and I believe in Kevin Plank and what he's doing and what he's done. So hopefully it will make me more money down the road. So far, so good.
It's so interesting too, because Under Armour is one of those storied companies that has had leadership changeover because of the way that the business was run before and findings that have come out about it. As an athlete, how do you hold those leaders accountable over time when something like that comes to light?
I mean, listen, it's a hard conversation, and I've known Kevin for a really long time. I don't judge people, but and I'm sure he agrees that business comes first, and I think he did what was right for the company. And I think at the end of the day, though, he's the reason why Under Armour is Under Armour. He built it from nothing, and so I don't think you can discredit that. And I think having him back, in a position where he can, help inspire and innovate is important, because that's what the company is based around. So I think, he has been held accountable, and he's not the CEO, but it is important for the company to have him as a voice. And
athletes like yourself, like The Rock, like Steph Curry, also reasons why Under Armour is the company that it is too.
Yeah, I mean, some good company to be around.
Exactly.
Not gonna lie.
So let's talk about the athletic side, because I'm sure there are a lot of people out here that perhaps Google prices at Telluride or at Altera or at Vail, any of these amazing locations and resorts, and even thinking about skiing. I mean, this is the one sport where I do firmly believe in the quote from Bill Murray that, every Olympic event should include one average person, just for reference. Because
I think that should be a show.
It should be.
Definitely make that a show.
Absolutely.
I agree.
I went deep into the online ski community, and one thing that continually came up was the seeming duopoly amounting at U.S. ski resorts between Vail and Altera was what continuously came up, but there's really more so the costs of some of their very expensive sports. I love golf. I know how expensive it is. There are a lot of people in the room that probably love skiing. They know how expensive it is. Has skiing in America gotten too expensive?
I mean, listen, I don't have kids, but to take a whole family skiing in the United States it's a small fortune. And I love skiing, and I grew up in Minnesota. It's not a big ski resort. It's 260 vertical feet. We got a rope tow and a couple of chairlifts. So season passes aren't super expensive, but if you look at Europe, and they've really made it accessible, but it's also a different culture. You can go to your farm down the road, there's a T-bar, and you can go up for 20 euros a day. And they also have pretty big resorts where you're spending 80 to 150 euros, but it's a lot different experience. And they have people coming in guaranteed all day, every day. So I don't know, it's a different structure. I think in the U.S. it's probably just going to continue to get more expensive because people are coming, and it's profitable. And so if that's the model that works, it's probably going to stay, unfortunately.
When you think about some of the athletes that compete on a world stage like you do, many of them are preparing for the Summer Games next year, and then, of course, 2 years after, we're going to be watching for the Winter Games once again. That preparation, I mean, you've been an advocate for mental health as well, and a lot of world athletes, Olympic athletes have been more vocal about that. We heard that from Simone Biles last year. Naomi Osaka has also continued to add her voice, Bubba Watson even. You know, what's the biggest shift, even since you've retired, and you've talked about this before, that you've had to account for, and how do you regenerate positive energy as well for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking about mental health since 2012, since before it was really like popular. And, you know, Kevin Love's been talking about it as well, Michael Phelps. I think that the conversation has definitely shifted, I think, in a very positive way. I think that one thing that COVID did was really expose everyone to what depression looks like. And it's very, very lucky if you didn't have some sort of depression during COVID. And so I think the amount of empathy that that people have for mental health is a lot greater. And so the conversation has become a lot bigger. And you know, what I hope is that, you know, more therapy and tools to help mental health are available to everyone. I think you're seeing a lot of these new startup companies coming out, and Sondermind and Calm and all of these, you know, these different companies to help combat mental health, and it's very positive. And I think athletes, especially Olympic athletes, have such an amazing platform to be able to speak about it, because if you really think about it, how much pressure we're under. I mean, I spent my whole life preparing for 1 minute and 45 seconds.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure. And I love the pressure and I love the stage, but it is all consuming, and it is a heavy weight that's on your shoulders, not just for my family, but for the country. So it is difficult to deal with at times, but you know, as athletes, we know that that's the game we're getting into. I think it's just important to have tools to be able to deal with those types of mental health situations, so that, you know, when you do have a problem, you have somewhere to go.
Right, and your foundation is doing a lot of work with younger girls, women who are getting into sports, and also continuing in championing that mission for starting the conversation around mental health early, destigmatizing it as well, but then also creating some firepower athletes and future leaders as well. Tell us about some of that work.
I mean, one of our scholarship recipients went to the Beijing Olympics for snowboarding, so it was pretty incredible. But yeah, we've given over $1 million in scholarships. We're really not sports-based. We're 50% sports, but 50% education. We do empowerment camps, and I really focus on trying to give girls the tools to be able to be confident in life, not, you know, in sports, but, you know, just to be able to walk around and know that they have something special. So I'm proud of what we're doing, and hopefully I'll be able to empower another young girl to be, you know, hopefully someone in the room.
Yeah. I mean, this has been a massive year. Yeah, you can clap for that, 100%. It's incredible the work that you're doing. This has also been a massive year in the women-powered economy, and we've seen that over the course of the summer, whether it's Taylor Swift or Beyonce or Barbie, but also the advancement of women's sport too. Women's World Cup, WNBA Finals hit a 20-year viewership high as well. What would you like to see across sport? The executives that are at apparel and footwear companies, and even the ambassadors of sport like yourself, in order to continue this momentum?
I think just continue to invest in women. You know, I think there's such a disparagement in how much money they invest in, you know, having us be successful down the road. I think if you look at women's basketball, everyone says, well, it's not making money. You know, how is this a profitable endeavor for us? But if you do invest, it is paying off. I've talked to several owners, and they're very optimistic about, you know, actually generating income, and the viewership ratings are going up, and there is a lot of momentum. So I think just keep investing in us, and it will pay off. I mean, if you think about how long it took the NBA to be profitable, it was a really long time. So I think we have a lot of momentum. I'm invested in 2 women's soccer teams, women's volleyball league. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and I hope everyone else does the same. When you look out and kind of think of your own investments a year, 2 years from now, what does success look like to you on that front? I'm long-term. I'm looking 10 years down the road, so I'm not cashing out of anything. If I do, I'm in big trouble, and I probably shouldn't be here. No, I have very long-term plays. I mean, especially when you're looking at investing in leagues or teams, you know, that's a very long-term play. So you can ask my kids if my investments were correct. that we should put on the t-shirts as well. Lindsey, thank you so much for taking the time. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Lindsey Vonn, everyone.